There we are, Red.
Good evening, and if you're just tuning in, you are listening live to the Angel Rock on 105.3 and 107.7 out of New Orleans, Louisiana. I'm your host, Lorilei Potvin. If you've never been to the show before, welcome, and I also welcome all our returning guests that show up and make the show what it is. If you want to be part of the comments, please head over to UFO Paranormal Radio Network, either the Facebook page or the YouTube channel. I'll be able to see your comments because, if you've been here before, I love to have you as part of the conversation. I'm a Canadian clairvoyant medium. I'm also a crystal Reiki energy healer, Akashic Records practitioner, spiritual teacher and mentor, also truth seeker, and a registered nurse. My show, I always cover all aspects of the esoteric, spiritual, the paranormal, the power of the mind, the power of the mind to heal, power of positivity. Hey, Dave, haven't seen you in a while. I was just thinking about you. Glad to see you here. Also, I want to mention to you, some of our shows are over on Roku. We do have our own channel. I don't have a channel code for you. That's the easiest way to find it. So I'm going to tell you another way. You're going to go to the channel store and you're going to look up UFO space P, like in Peter. And then there's going to be a list that's going to come up. So what you're looking for is UFO, Paranormal, and United. I think it's United Public Radio. And if you click on that, you'll find the channel, and there's some amazing shows there. We have something for everybody on this network. So if you like what you see, please share it with your friends and family. Subscribe because we are getting brand new hosts all the time. And this evening, I have two of our amazing new hosts here tonight. I'm so excited to introduce you to them. I'm going to read their bios first. So Gary Allen is an author, poet, philosopher, intuitive, and natural healer. He has appeared on numerous TV and radio shows and is renowned for his extraordinary abilities. Gary's interests include Shakespeare and the Who Wrote the Plays and Other Works controversy. He has a varied knowledge on many subjects and is married to the beautiful Shona Allen, and they live in Norfolk. Gary has written 3 books, In Search of the Swan, Dead Poet's Pen, and A Thinking Man, and is currently working on a 4th called Much Ado About Something. Shona Allen, his wife, is a singer, songwriter, actress, natural healer, and intuitive who has appeared on TV and radio and also appeared in various films and plays. A keen photographer who loves nature and animals. Shona has an avid interest in Egyptology and, like Gary, a quest for unveiling the hidden mysteries. The Allens have a regular weekly podcast show here on UPRN Live called The Allens Investigate. Welcome, Gary and Shona. I'm so glad to have you here.
Hi there, Lorilei.
Hi. So we've got Dave Petrella here. We've got Howard Peter. I'm probably going to screw it up. Pitre. I'm not sure, but Howard. I'll say Howard. Hi, welcome. Howard, yeah. So as I always start the show, because that's the cool thing, and we try and do this on the network, is have people. Oh, we got Michelle from Australia too. She always joins in. Welcome, Michelle.
Hi,
I always like people to find out about kind of who you guys are. Like, how did you get started in podcasting? You joined our UPRN family. But what I'm going to tell you guys listening, go to they're on YouTube under UFO Paranormal Radio. Check out their latest podcast because they give quite a bit of history about whom they are. So Gary, there's a lot about you and there's a little bit about Shona. So I'm going to start with Shona and then we're going to kind of foray into a short version because I want people to go check out your show. There's so much information. So Shona, how did you discover that, did you have paranormal experiences as a child or tell us a little bit about
you. I did indeed. And I wasn't really sure what was happening at the time. I just remember as a very small child, my parents put me to bed and they turned the light off and left me. And then I would feel the sensation of someone sitting on my bed, which freaked me out. I didn't like it very much. And I used to be quite upset by it. But that kind of evolved. I heard voices at the end of the bed, people talking and discussing things. And it kind of evolved, when I got a bit older, I would go to sleep And just at that moment when you've just drifted off to sleep, I then felt myself, it was like flying down the staircase. And I'd fly down the staircase and I'd get to the bottom and then go bump. And then I woke up again. And that used to happen a lot. I don't get it now,
Thank
thankfully.
God.
Yeah. But that used to happen a lot. And I used to sort of get things like I would see things and then they'd happen, or I'd have a vision of being somewhere and then I would be there. You know, so that was quite strange. And it was only as I got older and I started sort of reading up on things and understanding that I knew what was happening.
Interesting. Now I'm going to ask Gary. Gary, you have a phenomenal story. It's crazy, the story you've had, and
crazy,
you're so authentic in it. So why don't you share the short version? Because I want people to go to your channel and check out. You guys will not believe the story. I've got goosebumps even saying it.
Well, I was born in the East End of London. It's a very, very tough area. So you have to learn how to fight, to look after yourself. You have to. It's a tough area. And, you know, basically, I never learned anything at school. And I got expelled, actually.
Those are the smart people, I say.
Yeah. I'm not very proud of that, but I got expelled. And anyway, I left school and then I got a couple of decent jobs and I ended up having my own business and everything. So, and then at the age of, so I didn't do anything about the paranormal. I wasn't, oh yeah, no, there was a story. So I'll tell you that first, because when I was 6 years of age, my dad and mum had a prefab in Forest Gate, and in the middle of the night, my dad started shouting out, and I thought, what's happened? I thought we had a burglar or something, and we could hear chains going backwards and forwards down the hallway. So I thought, oh my God, what's that? And then when we went into the front room, all the windows was open, the television was blasting out, back and front door was open. And anyway, so my dad was running about like a lunatic. He was looking for somebody because he thought someone had broken in, you know, as you would do. And anyway, about a week later, my Uncle Kenny came round, and he was sitting there. He was really taking the mickey. He was what a lot of old rubbish. And my mum and dad had a great big mirror above the fireplace. And he said, if what you're telling me is true, he said, that mirror will come down in a minute. And with that, the mirror come crashing down, right? Thousands of pieces. And that was the first experience that I had. And as time progressed, I'd completely forgotten all about that, and just got on with a normal life and, you know, chasing girls, whatever. Anyway, normal behavior. Yeah. And anyway, when I got to the age of, I was gambling as well. I used to like a bet and everything. And anyway, so one day I won quite a few quid. I won quite a lot of money. And I bought as you do, I bought a BM convertible, and I go to the nightclub. Well,
okay.
And then I end up meeting this gorgeous woman, and anyway, I was supposed to get engaged and everything. So anyway, what happened was I lost a few quid, right? So I end up with a Ford Sierra right from the BMW. And I just about had enough money to get a mortgage. So I got a mortgage, and it was really what I was trying to do was get closer to this girl, really. That was the idea of it. She didn't want to know because I didn't have the BM anymore. So anyway,
that
so
should have told you something, right? It was the car.
It was the car, exactly. But, well, yeah. Well, it was the car. I've got to be honest. It was the car, wasn't it? You know. And so all my dreams were sort of shattered. So what I've done, I put some money down and got a mortgage. And I couldn't really afford the mortgage, but I was there. And I was there for 3 years. And I'm looking around at the walls. And I was feeling really depressed. And I've got to be honest, it was bad space to be, you know. The money was running out, so I was lacking money, and it was a terrible space. And I said, I went to bed and I thought, God, please give me something, give me some luck or something, give me some luck on the horses or whatever. And it was really down. My luck was really bad. So anyway, so what happened is I went to bed, and the next day I got up and I had this overwhelming desire to write. I ain't kidding you. It was really strong. And so I got a pen and paper from the drawer, and the only thing I used to write was betting slips. So anyway, I got to get a pen and paper from the drawer, and I put it on the table, and I started to true story. And I start to write, right? So I thought to myself, what am I writing here anyway? And about a minute and a half later, a couple of minutes later, I've got like about 260 words on a piece of paper. Mm-hmm. So I start looking at it, and it appeared that somebody was talking to me, right? So I thought, what the hell's going on here? It looked like someone was talking to me. They're saying, Gary this and Gary that, and don't worry, everything's going to be fine, Gary, don't worry. So anyway, I telephoned my friend Dean, and I said, Dean, I don't know what's happened, mate. I said, something weird has happened. I said, you're not going to believe it. So anyway, I told him what, and he went, what? He said, I think you better go and see a doctor. Or
what are you talking about? Have you lost your mind?
Yeah, exactly. He said, I'm sorry, Gary. He said, but I think you've lost it. I said, well, why don't you come over then? Come and have a look. So anyway, he decided he would come over, and anyway, he knocks on the door, and as he walks through the door, he's laughing. I'll never forget his face. He was really laughing. And he walks through the door, and as he walked through the door, for some unknown reason, I grabbed his left shoulder with my hand, and I squeezed it like that. And I didn't know what I was doing anyway, but I squeezed it. And then I walked away from him, and he started to rotate his left arm, and he was rotating it in sort of a clockwise, anti-clockwise, all like. And I said, what you doing? And he said, Gary, he said, I swear on my life, he said, I can't believe it. He said, what did you just do? And I said, nothing. I don't know what I did. He said, well, you touched my shoulder. He said, and something's happened to my arm. And I said, what are you talking about? And he said, yeah. He said, I busted it in karate. He said, I haven't been able to move it above like that. He said, I ain't been able to move it. He said, and all of a sudden, he said, I can move it. He said, I can't believe it. Anyway, so he sat down, and I made him a coffee and all that. And he said, read your writing to me. So anyway, I read the writing to him, and he said, do you know what, Gary? He said, that don't sound like you at all. He said, do you reckon you could do it again while I'm here? And I said, I don't know. I said, let me have a go. So I got another piece of paper and a pen, and I started to write. So anyway, so he was watching me, and it was like really fast. There's no question. And there was no pause, there was no punctuation, and no grammar. And he said, well, that's amazing. He said, what does it say? So I started to read it to him, and then he's looking really, strange. He thought, what's going on? And anyway, come to the next bit, and it said, Donna, which was his wife, had a doctor's appointment the previous day, right? Mm-hmm. So when I told him this, he spat the coffee all over the floor, all over my nice carpet. And I said, what's the matter? And he said, honestly, he said to me, are you having an affair with my wife? And I said, no, but thanks for the tip. Anyway,
yeah, I'm calling you over to tell you, this is how I'm going to tell you I'm having an affair with your wife.
Yeah. So anyway, what he done, he phoned his wife up, and she told him that she hadn't seen me for 5 years, which was the truth. Mm-hmm. And so with that, Dean, he said, I've got to go. And he left, and I never see him for another 10 years. I don't think.
It scared him off.
It scared him. Yeah, it scared him.
I got so many questions. I'm going to stop you right there. First of all, okay. For those of you, because there'll be people that'll be just listening on the replay, or they may listen. The reason why we were kind of laughing while Gary was telling this story is because Michelle in the audience had written, you don't need a car to drive a woman crazy. So we were laughing at that. Yeah, I want to say hi to William Garris and he's here too. Welcome. Glad to have you all here. If you're just tuning in late, I want to remind you you're listening to the Angel Rock Live on 105.3 and 107.7 out of New Orleans, Louisiana. My mouth doesn't want to work. And I have the Allens hosts from their new hosts on our show. So they're just sort of introducing who they are and how they got involved in what they're doing and kind of how they got together. But I'm going to give you the short version, but I have questions for you. And I'm like this because I get so many questions in my head. Okay, so when you were writing, did you know what you were writing, or you just kind of took pen to paper and just wrote?
Yeah, no, I didn't know what I was writing at the time.
You just knew you had to write and just sort of put the pen down, and it's almost like the pen wrote the story for you, or were you hearing a voice? Or
well, basically, it was. You know, I found that when I stopped the pen, the writing would stop, and then it would carry on.
So would you hear the words in your head?
Not at that time. I didn't hear no words at that time. No, it was just purely sort of I was writing it, and then there was no pause, no punctuation, no grammar, but it made perfect sense. It was all conversational text. Somebody was talking to me, and I had no idea it was.
Okay, same as the healing. Like this sounds, and this is so incredible, like this sounds destined, and I believe every word of what you're sharing with me. But usually when people get to the space like you shared that you were in and you went to bed, it sounds like you had this overnight transformation or unlocking, I would believe, what was always there and was meant to come out, because you didn't know you were going to heal your friend's shoulder, right? You had said when I listened to your podcast, you didn't even know why you grabbed his shoulder, right?
No, absolutely not. I had no idea at all. I didn't know what I was doing. I was just sort of led over there and just grabbed his shoulder. And, you know, for the time I was actually on his shoulder, which was no more than about 20 seconds. It was incredible, you know, just squeezing the shoulder, walking away. And, you know, I had to believe Dean, because that's what Dean said. You know, Dean had no reason to lie to me. He said that his arm was better.
As you went along with your story, and like I said, I'm going to promote your podcast because I want people to go check it out because it's fascinating, this story. They could probably do about 10 shows on this, like the things that have happened to the two of you, including how you met. And okay, so I do healing work. Now, the only thing I can say, and I mentioned before the show, many people know who he is, my son with the autism. What he'll say to me is, I can feel people's pain and I can feel the difference. So my son, he's at that like a precocious age of 5 to 7. If something hurts, he'll say to me, feel it, mommy, feel it. And he knows what that means, because I can run my hand over and I'll know where the pain is and how bad it is, right? So, but when I'm healing, I'm putting intentional healing out there. Like this was an intentional healing. So this is what's so amazing about what you're able to do. So fast forwarding through your story, because you have the most incredible story, the two of you, including,
it is an incredible
story. Can we go
story.
to the part about how you two met? And oh my God, if I can show you guys, keep getting goosebumps. It's not cold in here. How you guys met, and you knew you were going to marry her. Can you share that? Because I want people to get the fill-in parts when they go watch your podcast.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Well, it's basically we'll have to come back to where I left off with
a little bit. Back up a little bit.
Okay. So we'll go on with the how we met. Okay. So this is what happened.
You were really intuitive, like you were already knowing things about people that you didn't know.
By the time, we're now talking on from the time I first got the gift. I'd met. I was told that I would meet a dark-haired French girl, and I was also told that I would have a son, and I have a son. So my son is called Adam. Now Adam, he was only a youngster. He was about 2 or 3, and I was living in London with the French girl. And basically, I got up one morning and I said, "It's over. I'm sorry." And I thought it's quite artless, really, but I just had to do it. And you know, she took my son with her, so I ended up, I was in a flat on my own, and my son had gone as well. So you know, that was really painful. You know, that was painful. And anyway, but nevertheless, she took him, so and she thought it was the best for him. So, you know, anyway, so basically what happens was that 6 months later, you know, I'm on a train and I'm going to Essex. So I'm sitting next to a blonde lady. She's opposite me, right? So you know, I mean, I was a bit of a lad, really, bit of an EastEnder. So I'm thinking, you know, I wonder if she's got stockings. You know, I don't know.
Being a typical man, right?
Well, you know. Anyway, so I'm thinking that, and then the next thing that happens is I've got a voice in my head, and it says to me, "Gary, tell her Peter." Okay, so I ignored it, and then about 10, 15 seconds later, the voice repeated itself. It said, "Gary, tell her Peter." So I ignored it again. And then the third time was within a minute, and it said, "Gary, you must tell her Peter." So
they
I
never
said,
give up, do they? They never give up. They'll just
don't worry, I'm gonna say this to her. So I said to her, "Excuse me, I'm sorry to trouble you on your journey, but do you know Peter?" And she said, "Peter is my boss. How do you know that?" And I said, "Well, I'm intuitive." And she said, "Oh, my friend is intuitive." She said, "Let me give you my business card. I have to get off at this stop." So I had a minute between giving her the message and her getting off the train. Okay. So now 7 years went by. We become good friends. 7 years went by and I'd lost contact with Maggie. And I'm in the flat and I wake up one morning and a voice in my head says, "Gary, you've got to contact with Maggie again." And I thought, I don't know where Maggie is. I've no idea. So anyway, so I looked in my diary and I had Maggie's daughter in there. So I phoned up Maggie's daughter and I said, "Do you know where Maggie is?" And she said, "Maggie has moved to Norfolk." And I said, "Oh." I said, "Would you mind giving me her number and I can ring her up?" So that's what happened. So I rang Maggie up. And Maggie said, "I'm really sorry." She said, "I can't see you now because the place is in such a mess, but come down in 6 months. So come down to Norfolk and you can we can meet up again and that." So I thought, well, okay. So that's 7 years and 6 months, right? Don't forget that, 7 years and 6 months. And I come down to see Maggie and I've got my young son in a pram, right? And I'm in a place called Ottica's Bookshop. And I go up to the top of Ottica's Bookshop up the stairs and that. And there's a lady there with dark hair. And I said to her, I told her a few things. And she said, "How do you know that?" And I said, "I'm intuitive." And she said to me, "Wow, that's amazing." I said, "If you come to see me tomorrow, I'm going to change your life, right?" So anyway, she said, "Well, let me think about this." I said, "Well, okay, there's the address I'm staying at. And if you come, you come. And if you don't, you don't." And that's how I left it, okay? So the very next day, I get a knock on the door and it's this lady. So she said,
"And
hello."
you'd forgotten about this, right? Like you just thought, "Oh, she's not going to come," right?
Oh, I didn't know. I didn't expect her to turn up. But anyway, she did. So she come. Now, Maggie wasn't very best pleased that I'd invited a stranger to the house. Well, you can understand that, really, can't you? So anyway, so I said, "Well, look, Maggie," I said, "please do me a favor." I said, "because she's made the effort to come to see me. Let me see her just for 5 minutes." So anyway, she agreed, okay? So the lady come in, sat in a chair, and I had to give her healing, okay? Well, I say healing because I'm from the East End. You don't know what healing or healing is. They all sound the same.
Okay, so what did that look like? Are you able to say that, Gary, at all? Like, what did that look like when you say they were healing? Pardon?
Healing. Yes, I have
No,
trouble
but
saying it
what
because
does that look like? Like, what does that look like? Was it laying on of hands? Did you just
yes.
set the intention?
Well,
Yeah.
basically, yeah. I would be guided to the part of the person's body that I needed to go, basically, right? So she sat in a chair, and I went over her body, and basically, after about 5 minutes, she said thank you, and she left. Now, she never said what was wrong with her or anything. And anyway, so I go back home to London, and I get a phone call about 3 months later. So we're now 7 years and 9 months since I met that lady on the train, right? Maggie. Yeah. Right. Now, she phoned Jan. This is Jan. Jan phones me up and she says, Gary, she said, I have to come down to London to thank you. And I said, what are you going to thank me for? She said, well, she said, that day when I came to see you, she said, you gave me healing, she said, and I never told you, she said, but I had multiple sclerosis. And she said, your healing was so amazing. She said, I've been able to ride horses and do things I've never been able to do before. And I must come to thank you. And I said, honestly, you don't have to come to thank me. And she said, I want to. Right. So I said, okay, then you can come to London to thank me. So anyway, she comes to London about 2 weeks later. She knocks on the door. I opened the door to her. I said, hello, Jan, it's lovely to see you. She said, oh, thank you so much. As she walked through the door, she said, you don't like blondes, do you? And I said, well, I prefer dark-haired girls. I got to be honest. I prefer dark-haired girls. And then I said, why? And she said, well, last week I was at an awareness class. And she said, and I met a blonde lady, right? So Shona will take the story up of why she was at an awareness class.
Okay. Well, I was at an awareness class because I just come back from living in Spain for a while. And I felt a drawing to go to the spiritualist church. So I went to the spiritualist church and there was a couple of people standing outside as I went in. And one of them turned to me and said, you've come here looking for something, haven't you? Which I had indeed. I was interested in joining a mediumship circle to try and develop and understand a bit more what was going on with my things. And he said, well, you know, you can come and join our circle, which I thought, great. He said, come next week. And obviously you can come and sit in the circle and develop. So I thought, great. Went into the church and I actually got a message as well. And it was actually the medium came to me and said, you're with someone you shouldn't be with at the moment. And spirit were basically saying, kick him to the curb. And it was very true. It was very true. It's quite a detrimental relationship. So it's very true. I knew it myself, but sometimes we need a gentle shove, don't we? Anyway,
a bigger shove too.
or a kick up the bottom. Anyway, I went back the following week and the same guy that said, yeah, you can come and sit in circle was looking a bit stony faced. And I said, oh, hi, you know, and he said, I've got some bad news. He said, I'm really sorry. But he said, they won't let you sit in the mediumship circle until you've done an awareness class. And I said, well, you know, that's fine. I don't mind. So anyway, I went to this awareness class and I was the first person to sit down. The second person to walk in was this lady, Jan, that Gary is talking about that he healed. So that was really interesting. So that basically, I'll hand the story back to Gary again.
Right.
I'm going to stop you for 1 sec. 1 sec. Okay. So for people listening, following this. Okay. So here you were going back the next week, right? Shona expecting to sit in this mediumship circle. Guy tells you, I'm so sorry. You're not allowed to sit until you go to the awareness class that you went to, right? And now you've just said this, Jan was the second person to sit down. I keep getting goosebumps, you guys. I don't get this often. I always say that's why I sign for spirit or truth. But the thing is, look at how this all plays out. So when I'm giving messages to people or whatever from spirit, I always tell them, please don't try and figure it out because you couldn't figure out in a million years. Could you have figured out in a million years, this would have happened where Gary's now about to pick cup, right, Gary? Right?
Oh yes, yeah. So anyway, she said, I said she said that you don't like blondes. I said I prefer dark-haired girls. Anyway, so as she said that to me, I said to her, "Does this blonde lady have a red car that pulls to the left?" And she said, "I don't know." I said, "Does she have a boyfriend she shouldn't be with?" She said, "I don't know." I said, "Does she have a brother?" She said, I don't know. She said, "I'll tell you what, tonight I'm going to ring her up and I'll put you on the phone." So I said, "Oh, okay, that's good." So anyway,
why did she
that
think you needed to meet her, Gary? Why did she think you needed to meet her? I meant to ask that. Why did Jan think
she didn't actually say I was going to meet her at all. She
said you don't like blondes, but I met this blonde lady.
Yeah,
so
exactly. But I think that she didn't. Didn't have any intention of putting us together. She was that just came to her, and that's what. Anyway, so and she was intuitive. You have to remember that she was intuitive as well.
Okay.
So, what basically happened then is she phones up this blonde lady and starts to speak to her. So she said, so I say to Shona, "Do you have a red car that pulls to the left?"
Which I did indeed, because I had a tracking problem. Mm-hmm.
And I said, "And do you have a boyfriend you shouldn't be with?"
True, yeah.
And I said, "And do you have a brother?"
Yes.
She said, "I did." So, okay. I said, "Well, what I'll do, Shona, is I'll give you my email address. And if you ever want to speak to me about anything like, intuitive or things, then send me an email, or contact me. That'd be great." So anyway, she took my email address and I'm sitting at the computer with Jan and I get an email. And I said, "Oh, I got an email from that bird." That's what I said. Young lady. So I got an email from that young lady. And anyway, so I clicked on it and there was an attachment. And so I clicked on the attachment and there was a picture. And I turned to Jan and I said, "Jan, that is the girl I'm going to marry." I said, "I'm going to marry her on the 23rd of April, 2004. We're going to get engaged on the 14th of February, 2003. And the date was November 2002. So
you have a lot of work to do.
Sorry? Yeah, a lot of work to do. Yeah, a lot of work to do. And you forgot about the thing with the ring. You picked Jan's ring, didn't you, at that awareness class?
Oh yeah, we were doing a psychometry sort of test, and she'd said to me, because they asked us to bring some personal objects, and Jan turned to me and said, I'm gonna bring a watch." Okay, so when each of us basically got up to pick an item from the tray that each of the people there had put down, and there was quite a few, I thought deliberately, well, I'm not going to pick a watch because, Jan's already told me that. So I picked this. I was drawn to a gold ring, so I picked this gold ring up. Anyway, I went to sit back down in the circle and I started getting images of being in this kind of hospital setting with the white curtains, and I started feeling really sick. And
sorry, I'm just saying hi to Howie. I knew it was when he said tips top hat. It's his Facebook user. Hi, Howie. So go ahead, Shona. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Anyway, so I vocalized all the things that I was getting, and guess who it was out of all the people? It was Jan sitting next to me again.
Yeah, it was Jan. Yeah.
So so I definitely think that somebody up there was giving a few hints.
I know, but this is such an incredible story, and I don't usually spend this much time on getting into people's history, but I think it's important because once we get into a little bit deeper discussion, you guys couldn't have made this up if you tried.
No, and it's even more.
Hi, Robin.
It gets even more people. So what happens? What happens with me is I'm then told. I've had no contact with Shona. I know that was it. I came back down to Norwich, and I met with Shona for a drink. Right now, I know I'm going to marry her, but Shona doesn't know, right? So what happens? We have a drink, and anyway, nothing
There's
is
not
going to
really any
happen.
chemistry, right? There's not really any
No,
chemistry.
nothing is going to happen. Nothing. No, nothing is going to happen. She's interested in the intuitive abilities and that, but nothing is going to happen. It's not going to happen. So I go home and I'm feeling a bit deflated. And anyway, Spirit said to me, if you want to call it Spirit, they said to me, Gary,
I call them
buy her an engagement ring for your engagement at Roslin Chapel in Edinburgh, right? On the 14th of February in 2003. So,
and when was that for people to know, Gary? When was that when you got that message?
The date then was early December 2002, right?
So you
early
had
December,
like 2.5 months, and they're telling you to go, and you and there's no
exactly. No, yeah, it's true. Yeah. So anyway, so what I do, and I've still got the original flight tickets. So I get her an engagement ring, and I order it from America, and I get 2 flight tickets to Edinburgh to Roslin Chapel for round about the time I'm supposed to get engaged to her. Anyway, I don't hear a single thing over Christmas. The ring hasn't come from America, so they said, "Well, you got to have a ring, Gary." So I bought another ring. I've got 2 rings. If the other one comes, I've got 2 rings. And I haven't heard nothing from Shona. Nothing at all, right? And so we're now entering, I think it was the 1st of February, 2nd of February, or maybe a little bit earlier than that, late January. And I haven't heard...
I still can't believe this story.
Honestly, and I haven't heard nothing from Shona, right? And then out of the blue, what happens?
Well,
I can't believe this story. Somebody says they had the same experience. I'll read it after you're finished telling this story.
I rang Gary and I said, I know Gary. And he said, you know what? I said, I know that you know. He said, you know that I know what? I said, I know that you're going to marry me. I'd seen it. I saw it in a vision, and I knew that Gary had written a book called In Search of the Swan, and the swan actually is a really important symbol for Gary in particular, but obviously now both of us. But I saw 2 swans in a heart shape, and I knew. And so I was quite cross at the time because I was thinking, well, that this feels like things are being sort of created for me without my agreement to this. Yeah. And I was a bit irritated by it for a day. I was quite humpty about it, quite cross. And then the funny thing is, the next day I woke up and I was completely at peace with it. And I thought, yeah, that's what's going to happen. So I rang Gary anyway, and I said that I know that you're going to marry me.
Yeah.
And this was at the beginning of February, right? This is at the beginning of February.
Yes. This is the thing. So then Shona comes down to London to see me.
Okay.
We had everything in common, and we went to Roslin Chapel and got engaged, and it was amazing, honestly. So. Yeah, and what happened was that I had this intention of putting a red rose in a ring.
A ring and a red rose.
A ring and a red rose, yeah, not the ring, not the rose in the red, not the ring. Yeah. And so what happened? I put this ring in a rose, and Shona had seen it in a vision, hadn't you?
So you saw it. So we have no secrets.
No secrets, no. And then basically, so we got engaged, and then a year later. On the 23rd of April 2004, as predicted, we would have a medieval wedding.
A Knights Templar.
I was dressed as a Knights Templar and Shona as a princess. They also told me it would be a televised wedding, and it was televised by BBC and ITV.
Wow.
And we had jousting nights and everything. And they also said it was going to be a hot, sunny day. And Shona's mum was very concerned because it was April, and April showers And she said, I'm really worried it's going to be raining and all that. And I said, no, it won't be. And what was the temperature? 70 degrees.
It was beautiful. It was a beautiful sunny day. It was amazing.
Yeah.
This is an incredible story. And I'm going to go there in a minute. I just want to read a few comments here because people are just loving your story, by the way, in the comments. And like I said, I always like to read them out because people that are here live can see them, but anybody listening on the replay can't listen. So I'm going to back up a little bit. So we have William Garrison again. He says, hello, good people. I knew who it was. That's who I was. I tried to just say hi when someone's talking because I know who it is. Facebook users. Now I copied this for you so you can change your name so that I know who you are because it comes up Facebook user and I've got no idea that who's here. So give me one sec. I'm going to tell you, if you're coming up as Facebook user, this is what you have to do. Okay. So you're going to go to StreamYard.com/Facebook. StreamYard will request to access your Facebook name and photo. Once you accept, all your comments are going to show up with your face. So that's all you got to do is go to StreamYard.com/Facebook and accept. So I knew it was Howie because Howie always says this. He's in the paranormal world. He's an intuitive. He owns a Rift network. He's a good friend. So he says, tips top hat. And then said, don't you just love it when you know? And then he goes, it's Howie. I knew it was Howie. And then Robin's here from Halfern Paranormal over in the UK too. I seen Robin. He said it's Robin. And then I believe this is Howie because he identifies this down below. He says, yes, I will be asking Sarah to marry me October 29th, here, I'll highlight it, 2023. I completely understand. I'm in the middle of this story myself right now.
Oh, great. Yeah, congratulations.
So we've got Zach Man, another fan of the show. Good afternoon, everyone. Just got back from the gym in time to catch the show. Got a few more LOLs and sorry. The knowing and October 29th is me, Howie. That's how I knew it was Howie. And he said, I am loving this, making my heart smile. And then Zach added, I ordered a custom-made ring from the UK in September 2020. It was stuck in customs until I got it shortly before Christmas that year. Unfortunately, if I know that didn't quite work out well, but you've got a beautiful ring still, I bet, Zach. So the right person when you're meant to give it to them will happen. So what do we got here? Well, I won't bring that up, William. You say you're having a few issues, we'll say, with your account on Facebook. But yeah, we can see you, William. So you're okay. You don't have to okay to anything. Debbie Schmoley. Debbie, you just missed the most incredible story. You're going to have to go back with my guests, Shona and Gary. They're hosts of We're Getting to It. The Allens investigate a new show on our network on UPRN. So she says, hi, all. Just popping in for a few minutes doing my first interview tonight, but I'll catch a replay later. Good for you, girl. I am so happy for you. I want to see the link, please. I will be happy to share it. So we get lots of people, get to know people that show up every week, right? And it's so much fun. And I like to make them be part of the show. It's
like a family, isn't it?
I consider them like a family. And if you're listening, I try to remind people that tune in. If you want me to, integrate with part of the comments and stuff live, please head over to facebook.com. It'll be UFO Paranormal Radio Network, either on YouTube or Facebook. And then I'll be able to see you and we can put your comments here. No, the reason why is because I know when I go to a live, and unless the comments are flying so fast, like nobody can see them, right? You get hosts sometimes and you comment or you got a question or like the incredible stories some people have shared here already, and nobody looks at you're like, why am I here? I might as well just watch a replay, whatever, right? So you guys are on our network. I know there's a big bunch of stuff in between, but you've got the show, The Allens Investigate. Can you let people know, like, what do you do? Is this a new show you guys created? Were you doing it before you came to our network? What's it all about so people know?
Well, it's a brand new show. It's something that we've had as a seed of an idea for quite a few years. And it's only recently come to fruition again through synchronicity, I would say.
Yes. Yes, it was an interesting story because a friend of ours, Hamilton White, he basically got stuck and he needed to get some collection from France. And I offered to help him to drive over there. And that's what I did. And when we were on this long drive, we were on a long drive together, and I didn't know Hamilton at the time, only through Facebook and that. And I thought, well,
we had met him before.
We had met him, yeah, but I didn't really know him. And I thought myself, well, you know, spending sort of a long time together might not be so good. But anyway, it worked out well. And we were talking about this idea of ours, the Allens Investigate. And he said, that's a great idea. And, well, he put us on to Michelle. Yeah. And that's how we got the Allens Investigate. And, I mean, the main basis of our show is that we don't want to interrogate people. I know it says the Allens Investigate. We want to listen to their story. We don't want to make any judgment of it. We want to do some truth, drop some truth bombs ourselves. And hopefully people will get their own understanding and then pick their way through the wheat and the chaff.
And it's very light-hearted as well. We don't take ourselves too seriously, no. So we try to inject some humour and some light-heartedness into it as well.
Yes, bit of humour. You can't go wrong with a bit of humour.
Okay, so like I said, remembering we're on YouTube, so we'll have to be careful with some of the words depending on where we go with truth seeking. Yeah. Because I used to do a lot more truth seeking. Yeah. And then every time I would have somebody that was well known and sort of controversial, right away when I go live, all of a sudden Facebook wouldn't stream, and then YouTube wouldn't stream, and then everybody else wouldn't stream, right? So what kind of topics would you two cover? Like, are you covering things anywhere from true crime to spirituality and everything in between?
Well, we will cover most things, won't we? We'll cover most things. Obviously, we won't go into anything, you know, COVID related or that, because that's obviously not a good idea at the moment. But we have our own views on things, don't we?
Yeah, I mean, it's mainly focused on ancient history, you know, mysteries.
Oh, I love it.
Spiritual subjects, paranormal, Knights Templar, for example.
Ren le
Chateau mystery, ancient Egypt.
Channeling.
Yeah, channeling, all the healing, all these kind of subjects.
Okay, I got to stop you right there for 1 second. Okay. I had this guest on, and I work with this PR agent that is a friend of a few of the people here that know him. I take him wherever I go because he was such a big help with our paranormal story. Jason Bland, he's got Paranormal Soup on Sunday nights on YouTube and Facebook. Amazing show live. Check it out, guys. He's amazing. Anyways, I had met somebody there that's a PR agent, Gavin Lee Davies, and he sends me the most incredible guests from all around the world that are authors. And this one guest, Tom Riley, he's over in Ireland, and he's written the true story. I'm Oliver Cromwell, because I guess Oliver Cromwell over in Ireland has really been demonized, and he's done the work and the history. And we just hit it off like gangbusters. Most of these people I don't meet till like 5 minutes before the show. And he says, do you know anything about the Da Vinci Code? I go, the Da Vinci Code? Now you're talking my language. Well, we did a whole series on the Da Vinci Code. Then we've got a new host. I was just on his show on Wednesday, Bart Sharp. It's the Quantum. Please forgive me, Bart. Look up Quantum. You can't miss it Wednesday afternoons. He goes over, he's in Texas, and in Austin, Texas. He goes over to France and works in all the area, exactly what you're talking about, Rennes le Chateau. And like I said, we're from all over the world. You couldn't make this kind of stuff up. And what I love is you're looking at history, because history has been changed. Would you both agree?
Yes,
absolutely.
100%.
Last week we had a great guest in Andrew Goff, who's very well known, and we've got an interesting guest this week. We've had some very interesting guests.
Yeah.
And, it's wonderful listening to their stories and everything. And, some of the things they say and you think, well, we know slightly different, but we don't contradict them. We listen to their story. We're happy to listen to it. We're happy for people to make their own minds up.
Well, I think the essence of it is basically to present the information to people, and they either accept it or they don't accept it. But at the end of the day, if it makes them think, then it's done its job in my book. Because I think that's the important thing. Sometimes you listen to people speaking and you might say, well, I'm not sure I agree with that. But then they might say something else and say, yes, I do agree with that. And then from that piece of information gleaned from that person, it then leads you on and opens up a whole new chapter of the book. So I think it's very important, and that's really what we're all about. We're interested in truth, and in finding truth, you have to listen to other people and their stories and their information, and you have to pick bits out that you feel are relevant to you.
Yeah, the key to it. Sorry, the key to it is it's not your truth or my truth, it's the truth. That's
what I always say. I always say to people, even when I'm off air and having a conversation with somebody, I will say to them, you know what, you can, if it resonates with you, great. If it doesn't, that's okay too. But I always say, don't trust what I'm saying. If this really piques your curiosity, I'm hoping this is an impetus for you to look for yourself, to dig further, to look, to use a variety of resources. Because a lot of, when you mentioned, Gary, that you hadn't finished school, and I wasn't being facetious when I said how brilliant that is, because no, seriously, because, I went to university to be a nurse. Yeah, I learned about the human body and whatever, but it doesn't matter. I have found, I'm going to be 58 in August. The longer you go through life, the more I have realized that, you know what, you can learn only so much from books. It's life experience that teaches you, right?
Yeah.
Well, I've never read a book in my life.
Well, do you know, it's interesting because when I was at school, my teacher in my class, I think that's probably the most useful thing I ever learned at school. And he said, with books, he said, use books, but don't let them use you.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I've always remembered that. And I thought, what a wonderful line that is. And it's very true.
Some of the most successful people in the world have never finished higher education. Right back to, we can go to Einstein. He's not a favorite of mine, but he never did finish school. Bill Gates. There's lots of people out there that never went to higher learning. And as my partner Del always has said, and he's right, really what school teaches us when we go into school, right? We go in as small children and we ask why. Right. We all had kids at that age. If you had kids around the 3-year-old age, it's always every second word is, well, why? Well, why? Well, why?
Yeah.
Then you go to school, and the longer you go, the more you're told why. You're not asked.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it just teaches you to sit there.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead,
Conformism is a dirty word. I don't like conformism.
But that's how you find truth, by saying why is this, why is that, I'm going to explore this and find out. That's how you find truth, though, not by someone telling you what it is, because then you don't know whether it's truth or not, do you?
I think your show is important because this is what I'm finding with life getting so busy nowadays, that people are relying on trusted sources before that they maybe could have gone to. But with the way the world is going, we really have to start asking why. If something doesn't feel right, and we all have these abilities, don't we? I heard you say that on your podcast episode.
Everybody has a sixth sense, and everybody has healing ability, even the most ardent skeptic, but they don't know. And that's what we want to. That's what we want to show people. And the idea is, if maybe I'll get to read some of my poetry later, a bit of it, and then you quickly see and quickly understand that the person that wrote that poetry and wrote that philosophy is not Gary. Gary was just the pen. Gary was just simply the pen for that
You can
knowledge.
read your poetry, Gary. You can tell a little bit about that if you want, because your whole story.
I will.
I'm trying to
because
get people to go to your podcast. That's why. But go ahead where you feel you want to talk about, because it's beautiful poetry.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, basically, we've just been talking about. I'll just have a look here. Let me have a look. I just won't keep you a minute. I've got on the first page we were just talking about. Yeah, we were just talking. This is what we were just talking about, which is quite interesting. This is a piece of philosophy. I was taught, I gave others my teaching. I question not. They question not. They believed, I believed that my teaching was just and true. Suddenly the world was full of people who questioned not. In a world of those that question not, the teaching became a truth. And from that truth spawned the many of misunderstood. The misunderstood were those who never questioned if, what, and why. And that is what we've just been talking about, because people are not questioning what they're being told by the media and other, they're just not questioning it. And you have to question everything. If, what, and why.
Well, I think what happens, without getting into too dangerous of territory here, is I think the world is changing so quickly. Like, I found this, I wasn't looking for it. And we've talked about enough things here to prove that there are no coincidences. Things play out the way they're meant to play. And I wrote the name. I always forget the name. I don't know why, but I've been listening to it a lot. Give me one sec here. I took a screenshot because I knew I'm going to forget the name. It's called the Next Level Soul Podcast. And I do resin for anybody that follows the show. I love to create. I always have to be creating. That's actually when I meditate and really connect with spirit. So my hands were all sticky. I got a brand new phone and I wasn't going to be touching it. And this podcast starts playing. And it's a guy that was a Hollywood director in, obviously from the US. His name is Alex. I think his last name is Ricci. And he just started feeling really dissatisfied and feeling this calling that there had to be something more. So he kind of hid it for a while, but he kind of left Hollywood behind and started interviewing people, kind of like what we do, and talking to people. And he's investigated a lot of people that have had near-death experiences, people that channel, people that, are motivators, people that are healers, and what have you. And there was such profound information, and where I've really been drawn to is the channelers, and again, near-death experiences, because you'll hear people say, well, you go through a tunnel and you see the light, and that. No, I don't think I've ever heard one person tell the same story twice when it comes to a near-death experience. But it was powerful, and I'll bet you too would find it as well, or anybody else that recognizes how intuitive you are, to hear different people channeling a collective, different types of collectives. Some it was the Arcturians, some it was a collective called Theo, some of them were angels, whatever. But to hear coming out of these people's mouths when they're channeling things that I know myself have received from spirit, almost word for word. I shared it with a fellow friend, close friend, who's intuitive, and she's so organized. She goes, I was listening and I remembered I wrote this word for word in 2018. And she did. She read it to me. Right. So where's it all coming from? What do you guys think? Like, where do you think all of this is? Like, how are we connecting like this? Do you guys, with your show, are you able to help I don't want to say push people, but give them the opportunity, the breadcrumbs where to go to follow, like how they can recognize their own abilities as well through truth and history and the paranormal?
Well, I think the thing is that the first part of your question, I would say, from my own perspective, I feel that everything that we need, all the information that we need is there. It is there, a source that we can tap into. And you obviously must have heard of Nikola Tesla, the famous inventor of alternating current and free energy. He himself said the same thing, that he was aware of this sea of information that you're able to plug into. And he himself obviously got clairvoyant images of inventions, and he was able to run these inventions until they actually worked. So he didn't have to build physically these inventions. He would do this in his mind. So the mind is an incredibly powerful tool.
Sure.
And I think you could kind of say it's a little bit like a radio, in that you just have to tune it in to the right frequency and then you can access it. And one of the tools, moving on to the other part of your question, that I find the most useful, I mean, Gary's been lucky because it just happened to him naturally without doing anything like this.
Yeah.
But I think most of us, or most people, meditation is probably the key, I would say, to tapping in. Because you're training your mind to quieten the mind, to be open, to listen. And I think listening and the quiet of your own company is probably the best way to tap in.
I think this is the interesting thing is that I was told when I first started to hear in my head, because it's just like a thought voice. So it's like if for example, if you were washing up at the sink and then suddenly you hear the name Mark, for example. I don't know why I said Mark, but anyway, you suddenly hear the name Mark.
My brother's name.
Sorry? Your brother's
It's
name,
my
is
brother's
it?
Name.
There you go. Right. But it comes out of absolutely thin air. Okay. But that's it. If you get that name and it's sort of something you wasn't thinking of, you're thinking about washing up. So you're thinking about plates and dishes and whatever. But if you suddenly get the name like Mark or Phyllis or whatever, then that explains that you're getting that from somewhere else. It's not your own thought process. And I've got a very interesting thing because I believe, and I believe I can prove it as well, that the mind is separate from the brain, right? And the reason I say
100%,
100%, yeah. And what basically, I mean, when I started to channel the poetry and philosophy and all that, I remember that they were saying to me that they said, Gary, we will blank your mind. You will no longer have thoughts rambling in your head. And they did. And so I've got like a meditative state mind all the time, which enables me to write thousands of words without even thinking about it. I don't have to think about it. And I just write thousands of words, conversational words. Or if I get inspired, I'll write poetry. I'll write war poems, poems from like Elizabethan times, romantic poems about death. And you know, I don't speak from an ego point of view, but I am absolutely in awe of the poetry. Absolutely in awe of it. It's phenomenal. And that's because whoever gives it to me, I don't know how it works. I mean, I'll be quite honest. They'll give you a perfect piece of poetry from start to finish in about a minute or a minute and about a minute and a half. And I've got a couple of poems that I'd like to read so that you can tell the East End Gary. Absolutely. I mean, I've been educated beyond my wildest dreams by the spirit world. So I'm not, an uneducated man. I'm well educated now, but uneducated at school. And it's really helped me. And let me just have a look if I can get a couple, because so this is I'm just giving it to the listeners so that they can get a feel of what I'm talking about. This one's called The Riverbank. I wander along the riverbank. The wind, it blows but gentle. I seek to find the answers of my very existence. Oh, for the flowers that grow. The petals fall upon the ground like patterns of silk in its flow. I see such beautiful things of which they make me glow. Such beauty to have to see along the riverbank. Trusted friends, the birds, feeding on the worms that are earthbound. Joyous sun, it does pound down upon my sweating brow. The grass, it has such depth, it moves gently in the breeze. I see such colour from all around, the colour of the seeds. How this does please my eyes, such beauty.
Beautiful.
You know, and
okay, I gotta ask you too. This is driving me crazy because when spirit keeps repeating, and I would never tell somebody what a past life is, but you too, obviously, when you're with your partner and you've been along together as long as you have, had past lives. Do you guys have any idea maybe who you were in a past life? Like, I keep getting these flashes and I've been wondering if anybody's told you or you picked this up intuitively.
Well, we were once told, but I'm not sure about this. We were once told that we were gay lovers in the times of Shakespeare.
I wasn't picking
I'm
that
not
up.
sure about that one.
Not that that's a problem. My eldest son is part of the LGBTQ community. I don't have a problem with it because I keep picking up that you two, obviously, and I don't like to tell people their past lives, but you two have had this love affair for so many lifetimes and important roles. These words you're picking up, Gary, I almost feel like you're channeling, like you're continuing it from lifetime to lifetime. I don't know if that makes sense. And I'm not trying to tell you who you are, but I keep picking this up and asking you to mention
very,
it.
very interesting.
It would make sense in terms of the fact that when I went down to stay with Gary, it was like we'd known each other forever.
Forever.
We had everything in common. I mean, the only slight difference is he likes football and I don't.
But we forgive her for that. We forgive her for that.
But yeah, I mean, we definitely had so much in common, and it was freakily, like we did know each other forever. So
well, there is a story, Laura, about the when you're talking about reincarnation. Now, I wasn't sure about reincarnation, but I told this story in one of the shows a couple of weeks back. Now, what basically happened recently, I had a wonderful friend who traveled with me to all the Templar sites right across everywhere, from Leicester Square, when the Jean Cocteau mural in Leicester Square, right the way across to France, Temple Combe. And she had a passion for the Templars, and and she used to always say to me, she'd say, "Who are you, Gary?" And I used to say, "What do you mean?" She said, "Well, unless you've got a name, who are you?" And I said, "I can't tell you." She said, "Well, until you can tell me who you are, you can't go anywhere." So basically, I thought she'd be, "Well, who am I?" And I said to Shona one day, I said, "Who am I?" And she said, "You're the Cockney Bard." And we found out.
Oh, is that how you got that name?
Yeah. And we found out 2 weeks later that John Keats was called the Cockney Bard. But it was a bit of a derogatory term because, they said, well, with that, what is he all about? Who does he think he is from the East End or wherever? What does he think he is? The Cockney Bard. And it was an insult. But Shona named me that,
Not as an insult.
No, not as an insult.
It just came to me to call it that.
But this is the thing I was going to say about Sheila, is that I was in the house and I was with Sheila and another friend called John. And I said to John out the blue, I said, "John, you've lived many lifetimes and you've died many violent deaths, but not in this one." And I turned to Sheila, this is my friend of the Templar Journeys, and I said, "But Sheila, I can't say the same for you." So Sheila said, "Oh, I've had enough of this. I'm going to bed." So Sheila goes to bed. And I said to John, "I keep getting fire with her, John. Fire. And I said, "I can't get it out of my head." And anyway, 17 and a half years later, my friend Sheila died in Grenfell Tower in the fire disaster. Yeah. And that week when she died, I was thinking of her almost every day. And I phoned my son up in France and I said, "Have you seen Sheila?" He said, "No, Dad, I haven't seen her." And I was laying in bed. I think it was a Friday night, and I was listening to the radio, and they were talking about this terrible block of flats was on fire in London. And then they went on to say it was near Latimer Road. And I thought, well, I think I know that. And then they said, oh, it was Holland Park. And Holland Park was where me and Sheila used to have regular coffees. And so I came downstairs, looked at the computer, and I checked on the computer, and I traced back the route. And I said, that is where Sheila lived. And I went in there once. And I said, that's where Sheila lived. And I didn't know Sheila's second name. She only had the name Sheila. And I was on Twitter at the time, about a week later, and I saw a post from someone called I can't think his first name, but Smith was his second name. And he'd written that Sheila, his mum, was missing in Grenfell Tower on the 16th floor. So 17 years later, that prediction came true, you know. Astonishing, isn't it? I mean, she was a beautiful soul as well. I mean, I couldn't believe it. No, if anyone didn't deserve that, she didn't.
Oh.
Look.
She decided she's coming to join the show. She just stepped on the keyboard. That's why I grabbed her. And she loves this crystal I wear. Sorry. I have a question for you. My dogs, and usually my dog, I have a German Shepherd. Usually she jumps up, but I find both the animals really come around if spirits around. Like even if you're not asking for it, they do. And I'm sure, because I want to get a little bit into your singing career, and you're absolutely stunning, Shona. And I'm sure people have noticed that you look very much like Marilyn Monroe. So before we get into that, if that's okay, we do have one question, and it's from Dave Petrella. Now he's over in the US side here, but he's been very involved. I don't know how familiar you are with Oak Island and the history about the Templars. It's actually located in Canada, the TV show. Dave was involved with the TV show. So what he's asking, you mean the Templars, like as in Oak Island? So have you made any connection with either one of you with what you know of the Templars and of Oak Island?
Well, we've had not with Oak Island specifically, but we have had sort of connections with Templar happenings. I mean, obviously our wedding was a Templar wedding, a Knights Templar wedding, and Gary had his outfit specially made and
the Isle of Malta, wasn't it?
Yes, in Malta. So it came direct from Malta. So that was really wonderful.
I know that the Templars have been well travelled, but there's a lot of difficult things to believe about the Templars. You know, I mean, I know they went to Rennes-le-Château and Monseigneur, and then they wiped out the Cathars, and you know, there's lots of stuff. And the Rennes-le-Château has a lot of falsehoods about that, and that's something
that's a crazy church. That's a crazy church. Like, I've never been to Europe, so I had to go through with what Tom Riley was telling me when we were doing the shows, and he had sent me stuff. Then there was a documentary that apparently was up there. I forget the gentleman's name. He renounced everything after he had said what he did, but there was a documentary on him, and Tom had said, you can't find it. It's been wiped off the internet. I said, tell me the name. So I found it in an hour on YouTube, but it was in Spanish, the name, and it went through it. But he was telling me about the church. Like, the church is crazy. The stuff that's in there, isn't there?
Yeah. Well, there's a character called Asmodeus in there. He's supposed to be the devil, but it's interesting because I anagrammed the name of that, and it come out as Soma Dias, which is mind of God.
Wow.
Somadia. Yeah. So it's very interesting. And also another interesting anagram is Opus Dei, which is Oedipus.
Okay.
The Catholic Opus Dei, Oedipus. Yeah.
Well, Oedipus, for those that don't know, as I know the Oedipus, what I know it as related to is Freud with Oedipus complex. But I know that there was a character, wasn't there, in Greek mythology by the name of Oedipus?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. It's fascinating, you know, and I like, but you often find these things through intuition. And so, you know, one day you're just looking at it and you think, wow, look, there it is. Yeah. You know, there it is. Or
sometimes you just get a word, you know, you'll be doing something, I don't know, washing up or whatever. And all of a sudden you won't be thinking about anything particular. And all of a sudden, ding, a word comes up and you think, oh, I wonder why I got that. And then you'll go and have a look and do a bit of research. You think, oh, yes.
Well, I'll tell you, it's my path is the philosophy and Shakespeare and all that sort of interest and the Templars or whatever. But Shona, she is truly is amazing. I mean, she gets stuff. She gets words from ancient Egypt, and you know, and she's following some path which is truly extraordinary. She really is.
My cat likes you. She never does this.
It's on feral.
Now the dog's here, having a whole party
She
here.
wants to be noticed, doesn't she?
Yeah.
Oh,
Well, we
yeah,
like
she
cats.
wants
It's okay. Yeah.
She likes you guys because she never does
We
this.
like animals. We like animals. So don't
I
you worry.
adore animals. I do want to talk a little bit about you too as well, Shona. You have the most incredible voice. I've listened. How I met Shona and Gary was I was able to, while they're figuring out how to use StreamYard, I was able to produce one of their earlier
Still figuring
shows.
out how to use it.
What was that?
I said I'm still figuring out how to use it.
It'll come. But and then I had come on, you guys, this is crazy. You can ask anybody in the audience. My animals do not do this normally. So I went because I got your websites, which I'll make sure I let people know where to find you. It's in all the links with the banners at the end of the show. But you have the most incredible singing voice. So what got you into all this? Because I believe healing comes in all forms, whether it's artwork, whether it's laying of hands, whether it's singing. We all are healers. I believe it. So I'd love to hear a little bit more about that with you.
Well, I think probably it started off that my mum used to sing to me a lot. My mum was very musical. In fact, my whole family on both sides are very musical. My grandmother used to play violin, and she even played violin for Laurel and Hardy when they came to England.
Oh, wow.
And I've actually got their autograph to my dad as well, which is quite something. And anyway, so we've always come from a musical family, but my mum in particular, when I was very small, she always used to sing with me, and she used to get me singing along. So I think that's what got me into music, really. And I've always had a great love of music and drama, acting, all that kind of thing. I mean, I was acting in pantomimes and things when, I don't know do you guys have pantomimes in Canada and the US, or is that just an English thing?
You guys have such a rich culture and so many more beautiful things. Even I was thinking when you mentioned a spiritual church and I've done quite a bit of, like I was mentioning before we went live, two of my very close friends are from the UK that I work very closely with Spirit with. So I kind of hear about it vicariously when I meet friends, new friends or other friends. So I don't think we do. If we would have it anywhere in Canada, I would say probably in Quebec, which is like going to a different country here in Canada. Like if you went to Montreal, or in French they say Montreal, or old Quebec. It's just incredible, like with the cobblestones and the buildings and the architecture. It really is like going to a different country compared to the rest of Canada. So that's where I would say maybe we'd see it. Anyway, sorry, I got off track there with pantomimes.
Okay, well, just to explain what pantomimes are, in case people don't know, they're kind of taking fairy tales and putting them on the stage is probably the best bet. And there's usually a good degree of banter between the actors on stage and the audience. So, for example, the people in the audience say, "It's behind you," and there's all that kind of thing. So it's like audience participation and things as well. So it's a great British tradition over here, having a pantomime, usually around Christmas time. So I started off doing acting as a child in pantomimes, and that's really what got me into the love of acting and drama, really. And then obviously my singing started sort of moving more into the fore. And I always loved Marilyn Monroe. There was always a special place in my heart for Marilyn. I always thought she was wonderful. Yeah, I really did. There was something about her that was different and special, I think, more than anybody else. So for me, that I love Marilyn. And so that's kind of what got me in. And as a kid as well, I used to do lots of impressions or impersonations of people. And Marilyn, of course, was one of them. So I used to just sort of do it to friends and family, really, just as a laugh. And my mum said, why don't you start doing it properly? Yeah. So and Gary, obviously, you pushed me into that as well. So that's kind of how I started doing that. So I do kind of both talking and singing as Marilyn. Yeah, we went on the BBC, and basically what happened was that I said to Shona, I said, "Give me 2 minutes." She walked out the room. I said, "I'm going to write a poem about Marilyn Monroe."
And she walked out the room, came back in, and it was written, wasn't it?
Mm.
And it's called A Letter to Marilyn Monroe. And it's on my website, actually, the Cockney Bards website. And people can go and look at that, because I've got pictures of Marilyn, and it's a fabulous movie with and Shona you read the poem, didn't you?
Mm-hmm.
And I think it works tremendously, because I love Marilyn Monroe too. You know, I've got a lot of time.
I don't think I've ever met a person that doesn't love Marilyn Monroe. Like, really, talking to people from all over the world. Not that she comes up in every conversation, but I swear to you, whenever she comes up in a conversation, whether I've seen it publicly or a public, private conversation, I've never met a person that dislikes her. No. Honestly.
And the thing was, I did say to Shona once, I said, there is like a soul connection between Shona and Marilyn.
That's why I kept asking the past life, because I keep feeling
yeah,
you're embodying
because
her,
when we've been
like,
to,
it's the energy.
It's interesting.
And again, the goosebumps.
Yeah, when we've been to Italy and things like that, and people have stopped her and said, you look like Marilyn. It's a lovely compliment. I mean, there's only one Marilyn Monroe, but the point of it is that Shona can carry her off unbelievably well with do a bit of voice or something, bit of singing or something.
Every baby needs a daddy to keep her worry free. Every baby needs a daddy. Is that the place to be? Rich or poor, I don't care who. If you haven't got $1 million, then a half will do. Every baby needs a daddy. Could that daddy be you?
Bravo, bravo.
Excellent. Beautiful. That's nice. I did listen to your music. And you have an incredible voice. And I think, but Gary, like, I feel like I'm serious, and I don't normally, you can ask anybody. A few people had to pop out of here, so thanks they're going to listen to the rest when they can pop back in on the replay. But I don't normally say that to people, but I really feel like anywhere from back in the days of Egypt somewhere, like you two have just carried on this love affair romance through the ages. And
it's really interesting you mention Egypt, because I was actually drawn to everything Egyptian since being a child, a small child.
Scheherazade, because I keep hearing that name, Scheherazade. And I know nothing about her.
Yeah, well, I think the reason you are, because I think that my father used to tell me the story of that years ago. So I think that's why you're getting that. But I used to, when I was very small, I used to jump into bed with my parents in the morning. On their bedhead, it was actually a library. So they used to have lots of books in it. And I always used to go for the same one. And it was the Treasures of Tutankhamun.
Yeah.
And I would sit there flicking through the pictures, absolutely in awe of all of it. I loved it. Now, always been really attracted and interested to it, everything Egyptian. Fast forwarding into later life, I would say probably in my sort of early 20s, I wasn't very well. I felt really ill, and I'd gone off to sleep, and I had this most vivid, it wasn't a dream because it was too vivid. You can tell the difference between a dream and something else. This was so vivid. I felt I was actually there. And I found myself laying on what seemed to be some kind of stone altar or something. And there were Egyptian priests that were going round anti-clockwise around, and they were holding some staffs and they were humming. And it felt like my body was going in and out, and it was making like a funny buzzing noise is probably the only description of it. And I was going in and out of my body, and then all of a sudden I just leapt out, and at that point I woke up and I'd stopped breathing, and I had to go to get my breath back. And that was so, it affected me so deeply. I've never forgotten it. And so I think, I mean, probably some people might think it's totally off the wall and potty, but to me,
No, I don't.
I do think that I've been in ancient Egypt, and that's why I've been so connected to it, and I get a lot of stuff about Egypt, and why I was so attracted as a child to it. And and also when I lucky enough, years ago I got to visit Egypt as well, and I went to Luxor, and it was magical. And the day that I went to leave, I cried. I didn't want to go, and I didn't know, I was blubbing, and I didn't know why. Why am I,
because you were home.
Yeah, exactly. That's why.
Yeah. It's amazing.
You were home. No, I think that's what I almost feel like. You two were like, you've been really important people throughout history for some reason. Like it may not even been of a romance story that we've heard before, but I feel this, like, even this beautiful poetry. Like, I have to admit, Gary, the first time I met you, and then I went to your website and I saw the Cockney Bard, and I'm thinking, okay, that word bard is an important word to me. I'll tell you off air, not on air, but it's an important word to me. And I know that I've had many past lives with that particular word. But anyways, when I saw you write poetry, and I always say it's not my job to judge, I went, he doesn't seem like the poetry type. I wonder what kind of poetry.
No.
It looks more like he should be a bouncer at a nightclub, really, doesn't it?
It's like
a public speaker or a comedian, or you've got that kind of energy where you're not afraid to speak.
Well, it's a bit, it's like, I mean, I don't pretend to have the greatest poetry reading voice in the world, but the thing about it is all these poems, when you hear them, it's like, for example, I'm going to read you one now, because this is called Lost in the Winds That Blow, and it's a war poem. So this is, and how you hear it now is how I'm hearing it in my head from start to finish. Okay. And it takes the time it takes me to read it to have written it. Okay. So it's Lost in the winds that blow. Though young am I and fortunes fade this hour, this day, I lay fallen with friends I barely know. Such is this war, oh lovely war, where numbers not names have meaning. Dreams lay scattered in fields with fires burning into the night. Wretched war, that cursed war that scars the heart. Bemoan a soldier's life, a worthy man but a worthless corpse in bloody fields far from home. Where is the reason? Where is the hope? When letters to loved ones penned lay muddied, lost in the winds that blow. War in anyone's name, not mine or yours.
That is profound. Like, that sounds like somebody that's been there, like has really been through the horrors of war.
Yes, exactly. And there was another one which I read. I read this one, and this is my favorite war poem. It's called Etched in Some Memory, and when you read it downwards, it says Passion Dal. Okay. So it's praying for this day to end as death surrounds me, as scared as any man, yet I know no more than a child, suffering each friend's demise as in horror I reel, sacrificing my sanity and all I once knew, little as that was. Cold bodies, charred bodies, faceless bodies abound, hearing the screams of fallen mates and those I know not. Every sound I hear magnified in hell's tortured mind, nearing death oneself as shells descend. Good God. Dreams, optimism, youth-filled hope, banished to nothing. As pity rolls down my face in misshaped tears, pray for me, won't you? Every soldier dreams a victorious end, if only. Laid in mud, sacrificial lambs, butchered and slain. Etched in some memory in years to come, me and my fallen chums. I mean,
go ahead, Gary.
No, sorry, darling. Go on, you go ahead.
All I was going to say is, when you stop and listen to those words, and this has been happening with my gift lately, that when I hear people reading or speaking and describing something, it's almost like a movie's playing in front of me, or I can like see the energy. And you could see, like, at first when I was hearing that, it reminds me almost like of World War II from what we've heard, and, maybe what happened over in Japan. But then the last part of it, it almost brought it back to the rest of the world, and you could really see it and feel it. And for people that have never, thank God that there are people, young people, that don't understand what war is. No, neither do I, because, and probably neither of you, but the point is, you really were able to channel, if you will, like, there's so much emotion in there, is what I'm saying. Sometimes with poetry, people don't get drawn to it because it's complicated. That's not, you can hear, you can feel, you can see. We do have a question for you, but I know you were going to say something. Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say that when all these poems have been written over the last 30 years, and I mean, recently I wrote a poem about dementia. I won't read that tonight, but my father died of dementia, and the poem is written from the perspective of the dementia sufferer. And it's absolutely extraordinary that you can actually be inside that person who's suffering from the dementia. And that's what it is. And when these poems come through, it's like, if you was to see me writing and how quickly I write, and it's not automatic writing, it's because I can write at 24/7, anytime, day or night. I could be in a room full of people, empty room, and I'll hear the words and I'll just write them down. And basically, what it does prove, there's no question about it, that when people see the gift itself, I become the gift itself, and it is a pure spiritual communication between me and these spirits. And I know not who they are. I have no idea who they are. All the poetry, there's about 10 or 12 different intellects throughout. And when they write, I can show people how quickly I write, and I show them a piece of writing from 30 years ago, and it's absolutely identical at the same speed without pause, punctuation, or grammar. And because you're getting future prediction and things like that, what it proves, without question, science says that when the body dies, mind dies with it, because the brain dies. This gift proves beyond question that the mind survives death. Absolutely.
Well, if you
100%.
think about the law of energy, though, right, where energy can neither be created nor destroyed, but transferred from one place to another. And where I've always had a belief in the afterlife, I was raised Catholic, forced to go to Catholic school, forced to go to church. I never connected with it. I always say, don't bash people that need it. If it works for you, great. But for myself, the reason why I believe there's an afterlife, again, like I said, I believe I've had a near-death experience as a toddler. I wouldn't really be able to confirm with my parents. That's the only reason why I'm pretty well sure that I did. The fever of 106 and kept seizuring. And my parents would bring me to emerge. And the last time, and I'd stopped seizuring by the time I got there. And the last time I had a full-blown seizure, and they pulled me in the back. They wouldn't let my parents go. My parents have just told me when I was younger that they weren't allowed back there. There was no way they were allowed back. And that they said, all they told my parents were they worked on me for quite a few hours. And then I was in the hospital, I believe, for about a week, but I was between about 2 3/4 and 3 years of age. And my mother said, and she showed me pictures, I had a head full of ringlets as a little one. And overnight, the next day, my hair went completely straight for years.
Wow.
So the reason why, sorry, I got off track here. The reason why I believe in an afterlife is I always say I've been blessed to be there at the beginning of life, hundreds of times working in the NICU, labor and delivery, maternal newborn. And then I hurt my back working out as a community visiting nurse. And I've been so deeply, deeply honored to be there with a loved one. Families asked me to be there when they transition, as I call it, back home. And what I've seen, including patients who have had a cardiac arrest, I've been in the room, especially in the hospital, and afterwards speaking to them, lots of times on nights, right? People are awake, they can't sleep, they're afraid. And I'd be working on nights, right? Once my work was done. And they've shared with me what they've seen and what they've experienced. And knowing them before the cardiac arrest, and then afterwards, there was no way they would have known the things they knew and the things they could share. And it was never the same story. And I probably studied hundreds and hundreds, as well as talked to many people. And like, you'll hear people say, I said this before the show, people will say, oh yeah, there's a white light and you just go down the tunnel. Like I said on the show as well. No, nobody says the same. I think it was William Garrison actually also shared. So I can't convince people there's an afterlife, but I'll tell you, when you hear these people's stories and how changed they come back afterwards, including their gifts, incredibly magnified, there's got to be something.
Oh yeah. Well, you know,
and too many experiences as well. It's not just like an odd one or two. There's so many experiences, and you can't deny all of them, can you?
No. Well, do you know what? My friend, he said I could stay at his house one night. This is Ronald Bailey, and on my website there is an interview with Ronald Bailey, and he speaks about how we met. He was a wonderful man, and he was a friend of John Ford and Sheila Hancock, who were very famous actors. In the UK, John Ford was the Sweeney, is a British crime thing, but he's now dead. But very famous indeed. But anyway, that I stayed at Ron's house one night, and he said to me, my wife Eula, which is another great story. He said, my wife Eula's room is full, and you can't stay up there tonight, but if you really want to stay, you can sleep on the floor. So I said to him, Ron, I'm so tired, and I don't want to go from Harrow all the way to Essex. So I said, what I'll do, if you don't mind, I'll sleep on the floor. And that night I laid on the floor and I went fast. It was freezing, but I managed to get to sleep. And in the middle of the night, I was sitting bolt upright, and I was looking at the ceiling, and it was pitch black, and I could see this woman floating above me. She smiled down at me. She had a bun in her hair. She's a blonde lady. She smiled at me, and she disappeared through the wall. So I wanted to shout out to Ron and say, Ron, I've seen a vision. But I didn't. I thought I'll leave it to the morning. When he came down in the morning, I said, Ron, I saw this woman last night. I said she had a bun in her hair. He went to the drawer. He got a picture out, and he said, that was her, wasn't it? I said, yeah, that was her. He said, that was my wife, Eula. So, you know, that's why I believe in it. You know, I believe in it because I've seen it. What form the afterlife takes, I've no idea. All I know is that I've all this communication with them, years and years of communication. They've predicted the future. They've told me things about my own life, about meeting Shona and everything else, future prediction. And all I know is if people don't believe in it, that's fine. They're entitled to their own personal beliefs. But it's all documented. It's all written. We are living proof that you can see the future. You know,
well, that's just it, right? And I always say it's not my job to convince people, right? People are entitled to their beliefs, but I truly believe that we are eternal beings, and that this body is not me or you, right? We're just here as an everlasting soul, if you will, or energy, I believe, just having a human experience in this moment right now. Now we are almost out of time. See how quick this goes. I'm going to have you two back, if you will come back, please, because we do have a question. Zach's been waiting patiently. So what he says is, well, we've got about 10 minutes, but that's going to fly by. I know it is. And I barely scratched the surface. I always have so many questions. So Zach Man asks,
Marilyn Monroe,
I have a question. Since we were on the topic of Marilyn Monroe, Shona, Gary, what is your opinion on her death? Do you believe in the official story, or do you believe that she was, I'll say, unalived? And why would you believe that? Or are you comfortable answering that? And if you're not, that's okay.
It's fine. No. I will say this, that I don't believe the official narrative myself personally. I think because there's been a lot of programs that have blamed the Kennedys for her, well, what happens. And I don't believe that. I don't believe that one iota at all. I think it's been a number of false stories put out about Marilyn, that being one of them. And there are a number of anomalies. If you start researching into things, there are a number of anomalies that would tell you that it's not quite what the official story is, and that's what I'd say.
We were on the BBC, and we were talking about Marilyn Monroe, and we were discussing this, and it seems to me, and I don't think I'm wrong, I think that Marilyn Monroe was an agent. I don't think I'm wrong, and she may have even been a double agent, but I still love her. I still love Marilyn Monroe, whatever she was.
Well, I think the thing is, it's interesting because if you think about it, you know, a number of stars, they can become very famous. They get to mix with very powerful, influential people. They get to hear and listen in on conversations. They get to disseminate information to these people. So they're very useful tools, actually.
Yeah. I mean,
especially if they're programmed. I was just going to say, especially if they're programmed. Heck, we could have went, if we had more time, we could have went down the MK Ultra Pro. I mean, there's so many things you can go under. But I know right now in Hollywood, there are sex kittens that are programmed exactly what you're talking about. I'm going to add one thing, and all I was going to say is I wasn't looking for it, but I saw a post-mortem picture of Marilyn. And the first thing I said, seeing that, knowing what I know as a nurse, it wasn't grotesque. It was when she was being removed.
I think I've seen that. Yeah.
I said, there's no way that woman died by the way that they said she died, by what I saw in the postmortem, just by the coloring and everything.
Not.
And leave it at that. But there's no way, and I'm not a doctor, I can't diagnose, but believe me, I have seen enough people when they've left their bodies, as I say again, transitioning home, that there's usually a certain look by a certain manner of the way we leave this earth. And what the official narrative is, to me, does not support the picture I saw. You saw it too, Gary?
Oh, absolutely, I did. Yeah, I mean, Marilyn Monroe, that's the point. I think she was such a beauty, and she was extremely intelligent, Marilyn Monroe, and
she wasn't a blonde
bimbo.
Not one bit of it. Not at all.
No, she was incredibly intelligent. I mean, and I think for whatever it was all down to at the end of the day, the with the Kennedy family and everything, I think Marilyn Monroe, she her beauty and everything, she'll outlive. People thought she was stupid, but she'll long live past them people, won't she? Honestly.
Well, the funny thing is, there's a bit of a strange connection here as well with it.
Yes.
The connection to Marilyn, because my name before I got married was Kennedy, so I'm one of the Kennedys.
No way.
The Kennedy. Yeah.
My family comes from Ireland.
Harrison asked, what about this story about Kennedy being, I'll say, unalived by the U.S. government? Oh boy, we could do probably a whole month of shows on that. I love this kind of stuff. It's just the platforms that we're on. We always have to be so careful. But you know what? We have just about, you want to read one more poem, Gary?
Oh, no, just a quick one on Marilyn Monroe. It says,
okay, well, I was just going to say, let you read that, and then
yeah,
we'll let people know where to find you. So go ahead.
Lovely. On Marilyn Monroe, you can never make beauty look stupid, but many tried with her. It was her amazing ability to last the test of time, which proved that stupid was something that never did.
I love it.
God bless you, Marilyn.
Yeah.
That was part of her charm. And I think why she was as successful as she was, because I think you have to be pretty intelligent to play the role that she did, and was that believable, because I've never believed for a moment either that she was not very intelligent. So where can they find you? What about your show? Tell them what days, a whole bit. I hope you two will come back too, because it's so much fun.
Yeah, definitely. If you'll have us, we'd love to.
Yeah, if you'll have us, we'll love to come back.
So much to talk about.
I know.
Every Friday, so in the UK, it goes out at 7:00. UK time, and in America it's, I believe, 1 and 2 o'clock Central Time and Eastern Time. I think that's slightly different at the moment because for you guys, your clocks have changed.
Yeah.
Ours haven't yet.
So
And they
Eastern,
don't change.
I think it'll be 3 p.m. because Gary and I figured we're 4 hours apart from the UK Eastern.
Yeah.
So you either go backwards or forwards depending on your time zone over here on this side of the pond.
And then, our clocks. That's it. And then our clocks change on the 26th of March, I believe it is. So then we should be 5 hours.
Okay.
Yeah.
Normal.
So a little confusing, but it'll sort itself out.
Yeah.
I wish they'd leave the clocks alone, to be honest.
Yeah. So that's the show. And we've got www.theallensinvestigate.com. And you can find me and my personal website on www.thecockneybard.com.
Awesome. And your singing and all that is on the show too, right, Shona? It's on the website too, right?
Yeah, there's a few snippets
on the website.
few snippets on the website, and also if you go and dive into YouTube, you'll be able to find a few things on there as well.
You're going to leave us with a Marilyn quote about the radio.
Oh,
okay, perfect. And I didn't mention this at the beginning of the show. You can find me on Thursdays with my amazing co-host David Hansel on my second show, The Thing at the Foot of the Bed. And we've already talked about this week's show, unless something big comes up, because sometimes we will change. But right now we are working on the games like, what is Bloody Mary? Where did it come from? Is there paranormal stuff involved with it? Because even TV shows have covered it. And all those spooky games that people play, things like Ouija boards, and what we're going to talk all about that. So also, if you ever want to get a hold of me on facebook.com/The Angel Rock. If you've got a show idea, guest suggestion, you want to book a reading, healing session, mentoring. I have 2 groups on Facebook, Paranormal University for all things paranormal, and the Angel Rocker Tribe for many of the spiritual things we sometimes talk about on this show. Make sure, please, to tune in to the Allens Investigate this coming Friday live. And also, if you've enjoyed what you've seen here, please share, like, and subscribe, because we've got new hosts, new shows, new content, and there's something for everybody on this network. So I want to thank the 2 of you again. I can't wait to have you back on again. So thank you. And also, we will see you on Thursday. And of course, here next Monday, same time, same space with the Angel Rock. Okay. I send you all so much love and light. We'll see you on Thursday. Thanks again, Gary and Shona.
Thank you.
Bye.